All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to 2023. I cannot believe it's 2023. Shouldn't we have flying cars by now? I'm pretty sure we should. But thank you for all showing up, and for those who are going to be watching this on the stream, because I did get a few emails from folks that couldn't make it. So welcome and thank you for showing up to another year of meetings. So DJ's not here tonight. He's got some kind of more important thing to do. I shouldn't say it's more important, but he's got he's president or vice president of a bunch of different groups. And so this evening meeting kind of clashed with one of those. So DJ won't be joining us. But I think everybody knows this or not, but for those of you who don't know, our illustrious co-manager designed graphics and animation for Carrie Underwood's current tour. So I don't know if you guys know that or not, or if you follow, you're friends with DJ on Facebook. I know he posted it publicly, but yeah, DJ's over the break, DJ's become quite a big thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So, but I'll let DJ talk more about that. I'm sure he'll at some point this year kind of talk about what that was like and present on that. He kind of told me a little bit about it in our planning meeting, and it's really pretty amazing, the whole story behind it all. So, but I'll let him tell that story. I don't really have any announcements because it's January and there's really nothing coming up. I mean, unless we could talk about NAB, which is like 4 months away. So I think I've already gotten my NAB like free passcode. So if you have not gone to NAB before, you should totally go. It's easy to get a free pass. Just Google search for it or ask anybody in the group. I think any number of us would probably get the free pass thing. We can give you the code to get a free pass to go. But NAB is a lot of fun. And I think that's any announcements that I got. There's nothing else really going on. So real quick before we get started, just kind of wanted to do a quick round of, does anybody have any questions, issues about Premiere? I can't do the After Effects stuff because DJ's not here, but if anybody has any questions about Premiere, we've got a little extra time tonight, so now would be a good time to ask those questions if you have any. If you don't, we'll move into a new thing we're going to do this year.
I have one.
Sure. What's up, Tammy?
I'm really struggling in 2023. My computer is lagging. I'm 2 seconds behind everything, and it's making, cutting very, very long.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple questions. First off, are you Mac or Windows?
I'm a Mac.
Okay.
I'm hearing that it's hitting a lot of Macs. I was reading about that it's lagging on a lot of systems.
So, what kind of Mac? A laptop or a?
I have the desktop. I have an iMac Pro.
That should be enough to run it. But
couple of questions. So, like, first off, what kind of footage are you trying to edit with?
It's 4K.
Okay. And
it seems like a very basic 2 video, audio, and
is it MP4 format or ProRes?
I'm not sure. I could look. I think it might be.
Do you know what it was shot with?
It was shot with I believe a Canon.
Like a DSLR or?
Yeah, a DSLR.
Probably MP4
Probably MP4. So yeah, that could be, if you're trying to run two MP4 streams, that will pretty much choke the computer because it has to decompress all the frames. Like if you try to make a couple of proxy files out of those where they are converted into ProRes, it may end up working really smooth.
Okay, so I just need to convert them to proxy. Like I thought that's what I was working off of, was proxy files. But if I'm not, I should check and make them proxy.
Yeah, or
render them out to
ProRes. Yeah, transcode. That's what I was going to say. Transcode them to ProRes. Transcode to ProRes or make proxy files.
Okay.
Yeah, ProRes is a lot easier to edit with than MP4 files are, especially when you start getting into higher resolutions.
Oh, I didn't know that. So when I'm transcoding, does that just mean like I export it out to ProRes and then bring it back in?
Well, the easiest way would be to take all those raw files that you got. They're probably all sitting in a folder somewhere.
Yeah.
And just stick them into media encoder and just batch convert them all into ProRes, like even just ProRes LT.
Hey, Tammy, have you already started editing?
Yes.
Okay, well then,
I'm at yeah.
so
The proxies would probably be better.
yeah, what I would say is then is make proxies. Do you know how to make proxies?
I could figure it out.
So, because I mean, I can do a quick little, screen share and kind of walk you through it real quick.
Sure.
So, all right, let me, because I happen to have Premiere open. So this is going to be from the little demo I'm going to do here in a minute. But so I've got all these files here, these video clips. All you have to do is, highlight the ones you want. So in your case, all of them, right click, choose proxy, and then create proxies.
Okay.
And then it'll open up this little dialog box, and then it'll give you a bunch of options here on, so, you want to choose QuickTime, and then, ProRes, probably, either do, depending on how much drive space you have, you can do low, medium, or high resolution. Medium's probably fine. Just click medium. Down here, you don't have to add a watermark if you don't want to, but
although it does make it easier to know that you're working with a proxy file,
Yeah.
with a watermark on it though.
Yeah, I've started putting, that's why I checked. I'm starting to put watermarks on there because and basically it's going to put a watermark of the little proxy symbol on there. So you always know what you're looking at, if it's original or proxy.
Okay.
And then down here, this destination is the next one you want to check. So next to original media in a proxy folder, or it'll just put it in your, into some specific folder that you can name. So you can create a folder that's called proxies, and it'll put all the proxy files there, or you can just leave it next to the original. I tend to leave it next to the original media, but then just click OK. What it'll do is open up media encoder, and it'll start creating the proxy files for everything. It'll attach it to the media. And then over here, you've got, why don't I have it here? Let's see, I don't know where it went, but you've got a little thing right here, toggle proxies, that should be down here. And then you just turn that button on and click it, and then that will activate the proxy file. So when you're editing, it'll just be editing the proxies. I mean,
you should see the watermarks when it's selected in blue like that.
Yeah, I think it's over on this side. So yeah, you'll know. And then you just edit like as you normally would. If you do any exporting, you have the option to use proxies when exporting now, but normally if you don't turn that on, it'll always export from the original. So yeah, I would definitely say if you're having some playback issues with that, and with MP4 footage from DSLRs, you're going to run into slow playback just because of the compression rate on them. So definitely check
when I'm exporting, then I just toggle it back. Is that how I do
No,
it?
if
You don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to. If you go to your the export window here, it will automatically export from the original files. Now there is a button down here. Let's see where it is. To use proxies. I don't remember where it is now.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, there is an option to use proxies. Maybe because I don't have proxies on here, so that's why it's not coming up. But there is an option where you can use the proxy files to export, and it will export quicker. But I would not recommend doing that. And the only reason I would say ever do that is if you are in like a major hurry to get stuff out, and you just don't want to wait for it. I would always encode from the original files.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Happy to help. Anybody else with anything before we move on here? Okay, time. We're moving on. All right. So one thing that DJ and I are going to be doing this year is we're going to start every meeting with like a small, quick 5-minute or less like tutorial, like a tip and trick kind of thing. DJ was supposed to have recorded one for tonight, but I think he got too busy to do his one on After Effects. I'll do one on Premiere. And we're going to try to do those every month as time allows, and as our schedules sort of give us a little time to prep on them. So I have just like 3 quick things that I'm going to show everybody tonight. Some of these things you might already know about, you might be using in your workflow. Maybe you didn't know about it. So, but again, it's just a couple quick little things here, and then we'll kick off the meeting here. I'll turn it over to Andrew. But I don't know why I stopped sharing my screen, but let's share my screen again. Okay, everybody can see Premiere, correct?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so tip or trick number 1. Again, you may know about this, you may not, but So I've got this text on screen here. I have now started doing most of my text animations inside Premiere with Premiere Composer. If you don't know what Premiere Composer is, I would recommend going back, and I think it was literally a year ago, last January, that DJ showed this in our meeting for January 2022. And since then, I literally went out and bought it like the next day and have used it on almost every single project. But if you don't have it, you don't want to use it, if you need to create some interesting titles, one thing you can do, one thing that I use if I don't want to use that, is the transform command. And the reason I use that is if I want to animate this text on screen, you know, you can always just sort of do your position. So let me come here. That's where I want it to end. I'll set a keyframe back here, and then let me slide it off screen. And if I play this back, you can see it kind of comes on. Let's speed it up a little bit more. You see it comes on, but it looks kind of bleh. You know, there's no motion blur on it, and it just looks kind of blah. Well, there's no real way to get motion blur in the text commands here inside Premiere. You usually have to do that in After Effects, but using the wonderful transform, you can get a little bit of motion blur. So let me find transform here. Transform, drop that on. So I'm going to get rid of those keyframes that I created, and I'm going to do them all inside the transform effects. Let's come up here, transform, there it is. So what I will do is I will set a keyframe here. I will set a keyframe here, and let's move this off. So now if I play that, okay, you're saying, Addison, you suck. There's no motion blur on that. You're right, there's not. However, if I come down here into this where it says shutter angle, first I got to turn off the use composition shutter angle. And I'm going to make the shutter angle 180 degrees, just as any good camera would be. And now when I play it back, I got some motion blur there. Make that a little bit bigger. Pretty cool. So again, transform effect allows you to get some motion blur on your animation or your text or any objects you're animating, anything like that, that you would want to have a little bit of motion blur to make it look a little bit better. You know, that's the thing to use inside of Premiere. The other thing you can use the transform effect for too is it can act as sort of another set of keyframes. So let's say you animated backyard and you wanted to sort of do all this stuff on the screen, but then you realize, oh crap, it needs to be a little bit smaller on the screen, but you don't want to have to go back in and redo all of your scale keyframes because you've already got those set perfectly for what you needed to do. You can add the transform on top of it and adjust the scale there or the position there to sort of move that animation around. Almost, I guess it would be a little bit kind of like doing a nest almost, you know, of those keyframes. And so it keeps all those original keyframes you set, but then adding the transform, it allows you to sort of move the animation around a little bit and set new keyframes, if that makes sense to you. So transform is really cool effect, you know, can really help out depending upon what you're doing. Next thing I kind of want to talk about is this requires a third party effect, but it's really, really cool. If you don't have film impact transitions, why? Go get them, get their full thing. It's totally worth it. I don't know what the cost is. I think it's $100-something a year, but their transitions are amazing. Again, something that goes into just about every single project that I use or I do. Their stuff's getting put into. Their cross dissolve effect is the best cross dissolve, in my opinion, to use, much better than the ones inside of Premiere. So it's worth it just for that. But here, this is another cool little thing. So I've got this little hello on the screen. I'm going to make a little edit point right there, and I want to animate this hello. So that's where I want to end up. So I'm going to go to this first half because I've kind of split the clip in half. I'm going to go to this first half, and I'm just going to move hello over here. Now, if I play it back, you see it just kind of jumps. But if I use the film impact motion tween and drop that on there, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Now watch. Wait a minute. What happened here? It's not supposed to do that. Oh, I think because what happened? What did I do wrong here? All right, let's try this one more time. Again, always works in rehearsal. Okay, let me undo here because I don't know what happened. Okay, there's my hello. So let's move this one up here. Okay. Now, if I add the effect, please work this time. There we go. So now you'll see it does the animation. It creates the keyframes to animate it. And, you know, I can move this anywhere I want it to be. You know, so I can move it, let's say, let's come from down here. And so it'll, you know, reanimate it coming from down there. I can click on the effects and they have this little surprise me button, which will, if you click on it, it will randomly come up with some other kind of look here. So there's that, which is kind of cool. Click it again, see what comes up with. Ooh, that one's kind of cool too. And there are a bunch of different controls in here. So you can totally customize, you know, the angle at which it comes in. So let's see if I choose this angle, maybe adjust this dolly size a little bit, come up with something different here. Let's see what that looks like. So there you go. But as you can see, it is a quick way to animate something and get it to move without setting any keyframes. I mean, there's no keyframes here at all. That effect is generating the keyframes, and I can totally go in and customize it. So again, that is the motion tween effect inside Film Impact. Very, very cool. And a fun way to sort of get text up there without having to set any keyframes or do anything. Make it real simple. Okay, last thing I'm going to show you guys is, and this was something that, funny enough, there's every once in a while, I'll be watching somebody work and I'll see them do something in Premiere. And I'm like, whoa, you can do that in Premiere? That effect is in Premiere? That ability is in Premiere? I had no idea that was even there. And I've been using it for way too long. But I've got a project here. I've got these 3 clips that I'm not really using in the project. I may need them, don't know. Time will tell. But I know for right now, they're just taking up space in my bin. So I can select those. I can right click and choose to hide. Oop, what just happened? Why is nothing working tonight? I can choose to hide them. Oh, wait. Okay, now I've hidden them. So you can hide clips. And so it kind of declutters your bin. And if you need to see them again, you can just right click, view hidden, and then boom, they're back. So again, just a way to sort of organize things. If if you're not using them or you may need them later, you could put them into a bin, but then you got the bin there. Again, if you want to just sort of keep your project clutter free, use the hide command. The other thing that you can do is if you are consolidating down, for instance, I'm editing this project, but I'm going to give it to Tammy to finish off. But there's a lot of things here that I don't need because like these 3 clips I didn't even use in the project. So when I give it to her, I don't want her to have to worry about trying to find these or link to them because they're not being used. You can select these and then choose from, oops, sorry, it's up here actually. You can choose remove unused clips and it will go through your entire project, and any clip that's not used on a timeline or as part of the project in any way will get deleted from the project. So it's a great way to strip down your project to just the things that you are using. So yeah, under edit, remove unused. It's great thing to use. Like I said, if you're consolidating down. So anyway, those are your tips or tricks. And before I stop sharing the screen, we move on. Does anybody have any questions on any of that stuff? All right.
For
cool.
the Film Impact motion tween one, I'm curious, do you know which parameters it's grabbing? Like, is it only looking at like the stuff in motion in effect controls, or would it go beyond that just to know the scope of what it's doing? And is it doing it based on the parameter levels, or is it somehow visually matching? Or I'm curious.
That's a good question. I don't know. I know. I'm not sure how it does everything in behind the scenes. I know that, it just sort of creates that motion, that animation, just, based on where you start. You have your object, you put it in position A, you have it in position B, and then the tween effect sort of just does the animation to sort of, move it from A to B. If you want to go in and refine it, like I said, you have all of these different controls here, which will then, you can adjust to sort of change it up or alter that animation in any way you see fit. So I don't know if that sort of helps you or answers your question.
Yeah, I guess like one way to answer would be like if you threw a Gaussian blur on the first one, would it kind of tween the Gaussian blur? Or if you even threw a transform effect on the first one, I wonder if that would do it.
That's a good question. I don't know. Let's find out. So
Yeah.
let me add a Gaussian blur.
The guy that makes the Film Impact plugins, he's got quite a few YouTube videos, I think, where he goes through some of these effects. So he might have one on this effect if you look. I don't know for sure, but
Yeah, he does have a lot of different tutorials out about this, and he's actually really good at responding to emails. So if you do have questions about it or want to know more about it, I'm sure if you emailed him, he would be happy to answer you. Let's see. The interesting about this is I've got that motion blur on there. So let me turn off the motion blur on the effect, because that's sort of, it's hard to tell whether the blur is working or the motion blur. Enable motion blur.
you should maybe.
Set to 0.
Oh, you know what? It would help
So-
too if I turned up the blur on the effect. It's just been one of those days.
Maybe you should bring it in from on screen, like not have it
Yeah,
completely off
yeah.
screen or something.
Yep. Let me do that. And I'll just move it over here. Okay, so there we go. So now kind of
Oh.
let's do this. Let me redo the effect here, because I've got it all jacked up with all the weird stuff here. Film impact trends. Oops, nope, it's under smart tools. All right, so there we go.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, no, it doesn't. But if I get rid, let's see if we get rid of the blur.
I suspect it's probably only primary motion controls.
Yeah. Well, why is it doing?
Maybe go put the blur back and then do one of those surprise me transitions to see if it does anything.
Right. I'd be really interested to see if transform, because like if you just moved it with transform instead of effect controls, if it would still tween the motion.
Well, but the transform would be to actually move it. So, what would I be doing with transform? Because the tween.
Oh, I just mean to like move it from like you move it left on the first one with transform.
Well, but that's the thing that they're kind of doing the same thing. So the tween effect is what's actually animating it and moving it. So if I put a transform on there, that would be, maybe I'm just misunderstanding what you're looking
like
at.
you only put transform on clip A, and
Right.
then clip B doesn't have it, and then if it
No, I
changes-
understand that, but if I guess what would I be doing with the transform if I was animating it with the transform and then it tweened, it would probably just continue to move. Here, let me.
No, you're right. I think we already answered the question. I think it doesn't hit any additional effects beyond.
Yeah, I don't think it does. I think it's just because all it's really designed to do is just create a simple, animation.
No, it's an awesome tool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
So, I will say, while we're talking about Film Impact, the text animator in it is under the same. The text, where is it? Right here. Text animator is really, really handy as well for creating text animation. You just literally drop it on, and then, and again, same kind of tools. You can do the surprise me. It'll come up with some funny way to animate on. It's a great way just to get, add a little something real quick to your text without having to go to After Effects. So. Okay. Anything else before I stop sharing the screen here? All right. We are good. So, all right, let me get rid of Premiere here and then save changes now. Okay, so tonight we have a very special guest with us. Andrew Hicks is coming all the way. Actually, he's coming from the future because he is in Australia where it is now Friday. So as far as I'm concerned, he's talking to us from the future. That's the way I'm going to look at it. But no, the way that I met Andrew was kind of funny. So I posted up online about needing an effect in Premiere. And I actually had a few people reach out to me. Andrew was the only one that sort of sounded legit. Some other folks contacted me, and yeah, I don't think they had their act together. But I needed a specific thing done in Premiere for a project I was working on. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm working on something that can totally do that. Do you want to check it out?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." And so he sent me a little demo, and it's pretty awesome. I'm just gonna let him kind of go through it. He's got something else to show as well that's pretty cool. But I immediately said, dude, you got to come and show this to the user group, because I know there's going to be people that are going to need this just as much as I do. So with that, Andrew, I'm really sorry I don't have your bio to kind of go through everything about your history and your background, but maybe you can kind of talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to him, and he can, and I'll queue up the video. So just let me know what you need to show the demos. But everybody, Andrew Hicks, and welcome to the group.
Hey, I'm Andrew. So I founded Creative Workflow Solutions a couple of years ago, and I help creatives streamline and automate their workflows. So if they find themselves doing any tedious, repetitive tasks or just time-consuming tasks, I help people make it easier so they can spend more time doing the creatives. So obviously I've had plenty of chats with Eric, and then Jesse, who is also joining us, had actually the same problem that Eric was coming across. So we'll dive into that a bit later. But in terms of my background, I kind of fell into the whole video editing thing by accident. My partner, now wife, about 10 years ago, was taking photos and videos of real estate. I don't know what the market's like over there, but in Australia, whenever you go to sell your property, you get professional photos and videos to hopefully show it in its best light and get as much money as you can, I guess. So that's what we were doing about 10 years ago. And I started flying the drone with my partner. And as part of flying the drone, one of the people that the very first videos that we did showed this beautiful house on the beach. And we had this amazing footage flying from the house, showing the house and the beach. But there were loads of other houses around it. So one of the first comments I had was, it's great, but I don't actually know which one is the house that we're supposed to be focusing on. So that sort of led me into this deep dive into After Effects and how to track and show, say, a circle or an icon or a house, or some sort of way to show that how this house was connected to this beautiful location. So yeah, I dived into After Effects and ended up getting sucked into expressions, and that led to then scripting and then extensions. Then yeah, the next sort of step was, because we started getting really busy, I got into more and more of the video editing, and we discovered that there were lots of people like us who were getting really busy and didn't have the time to obviously edit. So we started up a video editing house, which was offshore in Mauritius, because my wife is from Mauritius. And as part of that, I started helping to streamline and automate these processes so that we could improve turnaround times and improve the quality of our output, really. So through all of that, that was probably sort of 6 or so years ago. Through all of that experience, I got to meet a lot of people from Adobe and just sort of people all over the place, and sort of got chatting to them, helped a few people out. And then it was a couple of years ago, I was like, well, let's sort of start formalizing this and actually sort of offering it as a service to other businesses, where if you have a problem or something that you feel like you're spending too much time on, give me a shout and we'll see what we can do. And that's sort of how I'm here today. So Jesse got in touch with me via a mutual friend. It's called Brian Levin. I don't know if you guys know him at all. But yeah, he put us in touch, and if Jesse's still there, I'm not sure if he is, but it might be worth him sort of explaining the problem that they initially had. So creating dynamic subtitles for quick turnaround social media videos, but I can let him sort of go into a bit more detail on sort of what they were creating and why it was an issue.
Yeah, so I'm the post-production lead at BMP Creative. We've been working really closely with Netflix for around 3 years now. And so we create a ton of social media content for them, primarily YouTube, but then more and more, it became like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and things like that. And subtitling is always a big part of social workflows now, like having people be able to see what's being said, even if it's on mute, is very important. And so at a certain point, they started asking for more like fun or dynamic subtitles. And one of the kind of popular things you'll see on like 9:16 socials, especially, is word by word timing, where the words pop up exactly as they're spoken. And I had done a lot of these myself when I was an editor and I wasn't in charge of post, and found it a pretty fascinating problem. There's a lot of different ways you can tackle it. You can keyframe masks so that they reveal words. You can try and just create stacks of left aligned text that will kind of mirror each other. People tackle it in all sorts of different ways, but I found that pretty much all of them were excruciating and involved going through frame by frame and just constant reevaluation of every single word and every moment. And really just so much less intuitive than it should be. It was something that I thought was honestly kind of an unsolvable problem. And so, yeah, we'd worked with Brian Levin as a freelance editor, and he directed me to Andrew. And there was kind of a long ideation phase. I was playing with a lot of different techniques and expressions and After Effects to try and crack the problem. Some of the initial ones were like, oh, we'll just have it, print the words from point A to point B and hope that the timing is close enough. And it wasn't. And then through a lot of experimentation with Mogerts and then finally getting in touch with Andrew, we kind of cracked into a way to essentially modify the contents of a Mogert, and the creation of a property that would say, which word are you on? Are you on word 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.? And kind of merging that with the output from Premiere's AI transcription to say, here's where word 1, 2, and 3 are, and here's the value that says print word 1, 2, or 3. And it was a long and interesting road getting there, but we now have something that I absolutely could not have created on my own, and I'm so grateful to Andrew for his like really brilliant work. And yeah, we're really happy with it. We're still developing it and it's evolving, but yeah, it's been a really awesome experience, and we're relatively close to kind of shipping it as a real product.
It's probably worth mentioning that it was put to the test on Tuesday on the red carpet.
Yeah. So something we've done for Netflix recently is they have red carpet premieres where they call them tiny mics, where they have a guy with a tiny microphone interviewing talent for a particular film or series. And it's really fast paced, where basically we get a ton of editors on deck and asset managers and a lot of people, and we're all on like a Google Meet together with Netflix. And it's all very, very spontaneous. And we just had one on Tuesday night. And this was the first one that we entirely subtitled with our dynamic sub tool that we built. So we had editors that had never used the extension before, delivering stuff like immediately as it rolled in. Like footage would roll in, we'd give it to an editor, we'd cut it, we'd approve it, we'd subtitle it. Really, really fast paced. And it was a huge stress test on the tool that we built. And I'm happy to say that it survived the stress test, and every single video we put out, I think there was probably 8 or 9 different interviews that we cut, and then a few compilations. And all of those went through probably 2 or 3 revisions. So like overall, we put out like probably 30 to 40 encodes in a 5-hour window in like 3 a.m. my time on Wednesday. And yeah, and so it worked. It was exciting. It was difficult, but it was exciting.
I think Eric, now might be the time to play the workflow video. I think it's probably best to get an idea of how it actually looks and how it works. I think that's probably
Yep, let
place the
me
start.
cue that one up. The tools, let's see. Workflow demo, got that one. Okay, hang on. Let me share my screen. I need to make sure share sound. Okay. Okay, here we go.
This is the Submachine extension, which has been developed by Creative Workflow Solutions and BMP Creative. First of all, I'm going to select an SRT file, which I have here. Select our MOGUT file, and we're going to leave the characters per MOGUT at 42 as the default, and we're going to select Create Captions. And now that that's complete, you can see that our captions have been broken up into phrases based on the characters default that we selected. As you can see, we're bringing through the text on a word-by-word basis, and they're all fully editable MOGUTs. So it's probably worth pointing out that that was sped up slightly, so it does come in quickly, but not quite that quickly. But I wanted to make sure that the video was less than a minute long.
So one question.
Yeah,
one
as you can
question
see, we use the.
Oh yeah, one question I was going to have. So basically, the workflow is that you use Premiere to create the caption track essentially. So it creates all the text. You export out an SRT from Premiere, and then bring that SRT file back in to your extension, which then creates all using the MOGUT and creates all the things, all of the text files.
Yes, so that allows us to get the accurate time data using the tools that Premiere provides. That's the basic route. And then we have the custom designed MOGUTs, which are how you can see and edit the text. And then it's a matter of putting them in the right place at the right time.
Got it.
And then obviously you could do this process manually, but as Jesse says, it's traumatizing. If you're trying to do that over and over, but that's where machines and computers are really good, is that if you've got something like that you want to do repeatedly, you can put it on and it runs. So that's sort of the start of the process. If you had your MOGUT set up and they were exactly as you wanted as a default, then you could pretty much be done and dusted at that stage. So you'd have your captions ready to go. But then if you wanted to edit those in any way, then you can start doing those with the fonts. And if you want to play, I think tools and all, that sort of shows some editing functionality.
The tools all demo?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we want to change the font on all of these MOGUTs or captions, we just select the final caption. We can change the font and then select all of our captions and sync text to all. And as you can see, all of our captions now have that same font. If we'd like to change the color, we follow the same process. And that's complete. If we go and have a look at all of our text, you can see that it's now changed to red.
Very cool. Let me stop sharing my screen here.
Cool. So that shows that the parameters that your MOGUT contains can really change up the look and feel of the video that you're going for. And one of the things that we've been really careful of trying to make sure as possible is that you can actually create and use your own MOGUT. So if you had a specific style that you wanted to either emulate, or your own style for your own shows, or whatever that was, that you would be able to use your own MOGUT, as long as the naming conventions and things sort of match. But you can use your own MOGUT to get your own default set up and run those, so you don't actually need to do any of the editing. So that was probably one of the key features that we've tried to make sure we can get working. So we've done things like when the word that's just been said, so the current word is a different color, as that's been quite a popular style. We've also had ones where a specific word is emphasized, and yeah, there's so many different options once you're comfortable sort of creating those moments in After Effects or having someone create them for you, that yeah, you can pretty much do anything that you want. It's pretty amazing, the sort of creativity that you can create. We've got, I think, one of the first Mogurts that Jesse created had, I think, 200 or 300 separate parameters, which was pretty amazing what you could do, but it was also pretty heavy to use, because you can imagine the codes trying to go through and read all of those parameters. So I think when we ship, it's probably going to be much lighter ones, but it sort of proves what is possible. And yeah, the looks that you can get are pretty amazing.
That was one question I was just going to ask you. So when it ships, it will have some built-in Mogurt styles that come with it, and then you can obviously add and create your own.
That's the plan. Yes, we probably want to ship with 5 to 10 sort of ready to go Mogurts, and then if you're comfortable going in, you can go in and edit those by unzipping and getting into the Mogurt and changing it yourself. Equally, we create other Mogurts, or I'm sure people, when you put something out this or like this out there, someone's going to come and say, hey, can you do this, or can you do that, or I need it to do this, or why doesn't it do that? So I have absolutely no doubt that that'll happen, and we'll get inundated with requests. But I think that's something we want to put on sort of a YouTube channel. Have, okay, this is how you might edit your Mogurt to do this, or this is how you might create this, or as well as having new Mogurts and things coming out. Do you want to show maybe the phrase tool as well? Because I think that's one of another key functionality is that each segment is split into phrases, and then sometimes it might be, say, different speakers, and you want to make each different speaker have a different style or something like that. So the phrases option shows how you can change those. If we want to make changes on the phrase level, we follow the same process. We can just follow the final clip of the phrase. We'll make our changes. We'll change an emphasized word. We'll select our phrase. And we'll select sync text settings. And we're complete. And you can see that the text has moved position, and we have our emphasized word not throughout the phrase. So yeah, I think that one shows nicely that you can move the positions of these Mogurts. You can change so many different parameters that you can come up with almost any sort of look or feel that you want. But yeah, I think any questions or anything you wanted to add, Jesse?
Yeah, I do want to add, I think it's very cool in that last one that not only is it syncing the parameters that are in the mode itself, but it's also grabbing from effect controls as well. So if you're, your first time moving a Mogurt around as a new user, your gut would be, I want to go to effect controls, I want to change rotation, scale, position right here. So that's, I think, a very cool functionality that it not only is looking at the Mogurt, it's also looking at effect controls. I think performance-wise, I'm seeing really, really strong performance on M1 Max. Even when in the Mogurts that have hundreds of parameters, the time it takes to generate and to sync the parameters is really like good for me. So like as a control freak, like I like the robust, like you have a million options kind of thing. But as Andrew said, like we'll also be packaging more targeted Mogurts. So there'll be one where I don't know if you have more videos that cover the animations at all, but
I didn't really go much further into that. I only finished.
Yeah, so we have a a few different types of animations. We have word by word animations, and then we have entire phrase animations. So right now there's a handful of parameters like slide and fade and blur and rotate. Basically say, as each word comes in, it will move from point A to point B. So you could say, oh, I want them to pop from the bottom as they populate, or I want them to go from 0 to 100 opacity as they populate. And then you could also make the entire phrase shake, and you could choose the amplitude and frequency of the shake. Or you can choose the crookedness of all the characters in relation to each other. Or even one very agonizing feature I built was figuring out how to create a path using a million different sliders that you don't see as the user, but in the back end, to basically create the curve and path of the entire line of text. So especially for an After Effects user, like the limits are like, there's like very few limits for what you could do. And I think one of Andrew's key innovations was sharing information in between Mogurts. It really just blew the whole project wide open and was really the reason to go with Mogurts, because they were so robust and they have so many options, and it's only like the user's ability is the only real limit in terms of what you can do there.
Yeah, I think anyone who hasn't jumped into the Mogurt world, I would highly recommend it. Just there's so many options, and yeah, you can create some really cool stuff. So I'd 100% say dive in.
And I just so group members know, I think designing Mogurts and building Mogurts and using them is something that DJ is going to cover later this year. I think it's on our list of topics. So stay tuned for a future meeting, where we'll cover a lot of that. So
I think what's really cool about them is they can be really, really simple, but then you can obviously take them to be as complicated as you want. I think there's such a huge scope for what's possible with them. But equally, that sort of barrier to entry doesn't necessarily need to be that high, which I think is really good. Are there any questions from anyone else on any of that specific one? Because I don't know if we need to go into it too much more.
I have just a comment, and maybe you said it and I just didn't hear it. Is this something that you're selling in and we can buy and incorporate into Premiere?
That's the plan. We are looking to launch fairly soon. We're just trying to add a few more features and get some of those Mogurts set up. So that's the plan.
Do you know about the cost it'll be that you're thinking?
We're not entirely sure, but it's probably going to be somewhere between $50 and $100.
Wow.
That's sort of roughly the plan at the moment. But we haven't finalized any of that. I think we're going to try and see sort of what people think. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys sort of think about that at some point. But yeah, that's sort of the rough guide that we've been working with. We've still got a bit of work to do on it yet.
I can tell you, as somebody who has clients who are asking for Instagram style, text population. This is how, I posted up on social media looking for this because I had a client who needed one done. And there's, I threw it up on Twitter, and some of the smartest guys that I know on there all said, I've been looking for this too, and the way the workflow that the company had, what they ended up doing was taking the audio from the soundbite, the clip, posting it on Instagram with just a black background, let Instagram create all of the text, and then bring that back into Premiere, and then just sort of unmult the black, and then just lay it in like an alpha channel, basically over the video. But there was no control over it. You're kind of at the mercy of whatever Instagram did, but that was the only workaround. Now, there was a sample video that they showed me that said, hey, here's, and this is what, when Andrew first brought it up to me, I was like, you've got to be able to do some of these things, because the sample video that they showed me, a different one from some agency, had text that was different colors and different sizes, some with boxes around it and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of looked at it like, well, this is crazy. How did they do this? And my client went back to the agency, and I guess the agency wouldn't say how they did it. So, which means that they either did it all by hand
Yeah.
Or they've got some mystery plugin that nobody else seems to know about, but yeah, when the client's like, well, can you do that? I'm like, not cheaply, I don't know what you paid for that one, but it's gonna take me a while to do all that animation. So yeah, I mean, as we move into, as editors, we're moving into a world where you've got to create for social, and you may not have anybody asking for this technology now, but I guarantee you within a year or two you will. And this plugin is going to be, shut up and take my money kind of thing for me. It's like, my clients are going to be asking for this. I'm going to have to do it and deliver it. And yeah, anything that can save time, I'm all about that.
Yeah,
So
that's the aim. And say, I imagine that agency did it by hand. Like we've been through, Jesse and I, a few sort of sessions sort of like this, where we've been, okay, so if I was going to do this manually, how would you go about it? And you're like keyframing masks or starting from the left, like Jesse said. And yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah, I think what we found is that there's the stuff you see online is you can see the ones where people were doing it arduously and painstakingly, and they don't look very good, and they're kind of janky, and you see a lot of those, and then you see this huge difference in quality where someone was composing the arrangement of all the text in After Effects and doing lots of hand done effects, and every single word represents 4 to 10 keyframes that were done by hand to create this really, really polished effect. And I think what kind of the goal for us was to find what's the middle ground. Like, how do I not kill myself doing this by hand? And how do I not spend $1,000 on like a typography motion designer pro? And like, where's that middle ground where you can still get something that looks cool and fun and expressive without needing, like a ton of money or an absolute pro in After Effects? And I think we found.
yeah.
Should we jump onto the Notion
Yep.
one?
I can get that.
So I'll just give a bit of an overview on Notion. I don't know how many people use Notion. It's kind of a bit of a do-it-all app in that you can do everything from sort of have a to-do list or just a notes list in there. You can have multiple pages. You can turn it into spreadsheets and databases and have databases that are linked to each other. Set up complete business and company wikis. Yeah, like a lot of this stuff, it just depends how far and how deep you want to dive into it. But it has become very popular. And so one of the things I wanted to try and do was connect to their API and use a Notion database to then run a fairly simple workflow in Premiere. And this is creating some lower thirds based on that data from Notion and creating these mogets that you can then use in your projects or however you wanted to use it. I think the key point for me was that it's not necessarily about the exact workflow. It's the concept that you can bring data from an outside source and use it to help run a workflow in Premiere. So I think that's really the key when you're watching this is maybe there's something that you find yourself, you're copying and pasting something from an Excel sheet or from the web somewhere or some Google Doc or whatever it is, and you're having to copy paste that into Premiere or After Effects or whatever. Then this is a sort of workflow that you could use. But say I've done ones where I end up setting up projects or creating sequences or creating entire sort of animations. It's really, again, up to your imagination and how far you want to go it and the specific use cases and workflows that you have. So yeah, I think let's play it and shout out if you have any questions at the end. Hi, my name is Andrew Hicks from Creative Workflow Solutions, and this is a demo video showing how you can connect a Notion database to Premiere Pro. So here's the extension within Premiere Pro, and here's my Notion database. So as you can see, we've got a bit of data here. We've got first name, last name, email, company name, job title, country, and a number of color options. The first step is to select the Moget we'd like to use. And then we're going to select what we'd like as our second text option in the lower third. We'll select the Create Lower Thirds button. And here you can see we're starting to create sequences based on each of the names within our database. And then the Moget is being imported. Okay, so that's created 10. And as you can see, all of that data has come through from our Notion database. So we have the name and the email address. If I go back to our Notion database, the last one that we got to was this one. And you can see that that data has come through correctly. And the nice feature of this is that obviously the Moget is completely editable. So if I were to just add some text on the end, you can see obviously the Moget updates. If I wanted to change some of the colors, then again, obviously it updates. Okay. So we'll just have a look at a couple of the others. Again, you can see the colors have come through based on the date within the Notion database, and will come through separately. So I'll just delete these, and we'll change the parameter for the second option for the text to country. We'll go through that same process again, create the lower thirds. And if we have a look at these, you can see that instead of the email address coming through, the country has come through. And obviously you can see there are a number of different ways that you could use this and connect data to your video workflows. Cool. So yeah, I think that especially that end sentence, I think the key is that like I don't know how useful that actual example would be. I guess it, like I think Eric, we were talking about a scenario where you were creating some lower thirds that could have been handy. But I think the key takeaway is that you can use data and get it into Premiere and do some really cool stuff. I think that's probably the key takeaway. So yeah,
just so everybody knows, the story that I was telling Andrew before we started was years ago, I got hired to do the graduation ceremony, for those of you who are local, for National University, to edit it together. And I was given 3 video feeds, or 3 video files, essentially. The camera, the program feed of all the students walking up on stage, and then a feed that was supposed to have lower thirds that had all their names on it, and then an alternate camera angle. Well, the feed that was supposed to have the lower third with all their names went out, and I didn't have the names. And there was about, I want to say there was between 600 names, 700 names or something like that. It was a crazy amount of names that I had to lay in. And when I told the client, I'm like, I need those files, or I need that video feed. And they're like, yeah, you're just gonna have to generate them by hand. And I'm like, dude, that's gonna take forever for that many names to cut and paste and all that. And I found a tutorial online that would take an Excel spreadsheet, which all the names fortunately were in an Excel spreadsheet in order. But this Excel spreadsheet, there was a thing inside Photoshop that would let you bring that data from the Excel spreadsheet into Photoshop and automate, and create all the lower thirds based on a template. I just had to put in, create the template, put in some stuff, where the name was supposed to go, and then it did it. And it did the whole thing, I think in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. I don't remember, but it created all the lower thirds as, either I think they were PNGs. And yeah, it worked perfect. I was able just to drop them in. So yeah, so something like this is kind of the next level kind of thing where, now you can do Mogerts, and have that extra layer. I mean, what I did before was just a static Photoshop layer. This, I can actually have some animation. It can be a Mogert and have all kinds of cool looking stuff and still do that same thing. So yeah, I mean, there are total use cases for this.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to say, is the taking it from Photoshop was probably a static thing, whereas obviously with these Mogerts, you can have as much animation in, out, animations, whatever you sort of need. Yeah, there's plenty of options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Other questions on that sort of thing?
No questions. Everybody's stunned. How?
No
So
questions, but
oh.
it's really awesome. I gotta tell you, I really like what you're doing.
Cheers.
So
I think
thank you.
it all comes from hopefully giving you guys more time to do the fun stuff rather than the boring, tedious stuff that no one actually wants to do, that you end up getting told by a client that has to be done by 2 a.m. tomorrow.
when will that last? So the last point we just saw, I mean, when do you expect to have that one ready to ship? And then do you have a cost for that one as well?
At this stage, that's probably not something that's going to ship. It's more of a concept, because I'm not sure how to narrow the variables down, because I don't know how people would want to specifically use it. So that was more of a proof of concept, say, hey, this is something that could be done. If you have a specific use case, then let's have a chat and we can sort of nail it down. So at this stage, there's no plan to sell that specific product, because I think it's such a broad range of what's possible. So I think, yeah, if there was someone who wanted something like that, give me a shout and we'll have a chat and we'll narrow down the focus a bit.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, me personally, I think there's a total market for it, but that's just me. But yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying, but yeah, I think there's editors out there who could totally use that.
Yeah, I guess it would just need a bit more thought from me on how people might use it, and how you'd probably then need to have moguts that were customizable, and then you'd need to be able to tie the columns to a specific parameter within the mogut. So you'd need to set up some linking and that sort of thing there. So it was more of a general use product.
Yeah,
definitely doable.
Yeah, I mean, I know guys that do like big trade shows and do other kind of stuff where, yeah, being able to just like have an Excel spreadsheet or a Notion or whatever, have a document with all that information, and you've got to create all these lower thirds, and just being able to just instantly be able to do that for all these different people, it just, again, saves you one step, while you're trying to slam videos out and get stuff going, especially when you're on a time crunch. Like, yeah, I can see that being a huge time.
Yeah, it's sort of like the red carpet thing that Jesse was doing. It'd be the same with those trade shows where you've got people coming on set and talking, and you've got to get the lower third, the titles all right, and all that sort of stuff. I can definitely see a scenario where that would be handy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Let's see. I'm assuming this is Jesse, since it says Andrew Hicks. Could be useful, especially for baking in high level effects that need to be pre-rendered with enough volume. Yeah. Totally. So, all right, that's amazing stuff. And listen, I'm going to be plunking down my money as soon as the submachine gun becomes out, because yeah, it's going to be great, and I'm totally going to use it. So if there's no other questions, last chance to get any questions. Otherwise, we're going to let Andrew go. Again, he's on the far side of the world, so we got to let him get to enjoy his Friday here. But thank you, Andrew and Jesse, for coming out and presenting and showing this stuff. I mean, it's really, really amazing. And I'm so glad it's out there, because I'm definitely going to need it. So any last questions before we let the guys go? We wrap things up. Okay.
Andrew, I just want to say great job. I mean, I would buy it too. Really great presentation. Really good work.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, folks, we will see you next month. Hopefully DJ will be back next month, and we'll have all new stuff for you, and I'll get the meeting notice out as soon as we got everything all lined up. But thank you for coming out. It was good to see you, everybody. And one last little bit, just I know I mentioned this on the group forum, but we are working at trying to get in-person meetings back again. I posted a poll recently up on the Facebook group page. I didn't put it on the meetup page, but I probably should. But we have a couple locations, one of which is up in North County. So if that's something that could work for you, please respond to that poll. But we are working. We're going to try to get at least 3 meetings this year back in person, now that we're kind of coming out of COVID and everybody's comfortable with being in a room full of people again. We're going to try to do that and not have to do Zoom meetings anymore. But I think for the time being, we're still got to do a few. So anyway, thank you all. Thank you again, Andrew. Thank you again, Jesse. We'll see you all next month. Bye-bye.